This chilling tale comes from a man named Alex, a security guard, young, fresh out of training, who thought he'd seen it all. He hadn't, not even close. His first real solo gig was at a place the locals just called the Old Facility. It wasn't just old. It was decrepit, a sprawling complex of concrete and rusted metal, nestled deep in the forgotten industrial outskirts of the city. Years ago, they said it was some kind of biochemical research lab. Then, one day, operations just stopped, doors locked, windows boarded, silence, a shroud of unsettling quiet hung over the place like a permanent fog. Alex got the night shift, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. 10 hours of absolute solitude, patrolling empty corridors, checking the occasional flickering camera feed. Easy money, his supervisor had grunted, handing him a hefty key ring and a flashlight that felt suspiciously heavy. Nothing but rats and rust out there, kid. Alex had walked in that first night, the heavy iron gate groaning like a dying beast as he pushed it open. The air inside hit him immediately. Stale, metallic, like old blood and forgotten chemicals. It clung to his clothes, to his skin, a scent that tasted vaguely of decay. His boots echoed hollowly on the concrete floors, each step amplified 100 times in the vast, empty halls. The emergency lights, spaced far apart, cast long, dancing shadows that stretched and warped with every slight shift in the building. It felt less like a decommissioned lab and more like a mausoleum. A concrete tomb for forgotten secrets. The first few hours were exactly as promised, boring. Alex walked his rounds, checked a few locked doors, glanced at the grainy monitors. The only sounds were his own breathing, the distant whine of the wind outside, and the endless symphony of an old building settling. Creaks, groans, distant metallic clangs that would make him flinch for a second before he dismissed them as the building talking to itself. He told himself it was just the wind, just the pipes, just the rats. But there was a chill in the air, a specific, biting cold that didn't feel natural. It wasn't the kind of cold that came from a broken heater. It was the kind that sank into your bones, whispering. Around midnight, things started to shift. Subtly at first, Alex was in Sector C, a long, winding corridor lined with what looked like old, sealed decontamination chambers. He just turned a corner when he heard it, a faint, almost imperceptible hum. Like an old refrigerator, but deeper, more resonant. He stopped dead, flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. Nothing, just a hum. He walked on, trying to locate the source. It seemed to move with him, a low thrumming vibration that he felt more in his teeth than heard with his ears. He shook his head. Old building, Alex, just the electrical grid. He passed a door, a heavy steel door, marked with a faded hazard symbol. It was supposed to be locked. He checked it every night, but tonight it was ajar, just a crack, a sliver of darkness even blacker than the hallway itself. His heart gave a jolt. He pushed it open slowly, cautiously. The hum intensified, emanating from inside. The room was huge, cavernous, filled with shadows. He swept his flashlight around. Dust motes danced in the beam. Old, rusted equipment sat like skeletal remains, and then he saw it, in the center of the room. A large cylindrical tank, almost like something out of a sci-fi movie. It was filled with a murky, viscous liquid that seemed to glow faintly from within, and from its depths came the hum, a low, rhythmic pulse. He backed out slowly, his stomach twisting. He told himself he'd report it in the morning. He just closed the door, not locked it, just closed it. The rest of that night was a blur of heightened senses. Every creak was a footstep. Every shadow was a lurking presence. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. A prickling sensation on the back of his neck. He saw things out of the corner of his eye. A fleeting movement down a distant hall. A distortion in the air. From the moment he turned his head directly. By 5 a.m., he was a wreck, counting down the minutes, practically running his last rounds. He clocked out as soon as his relief arrived, practically sprinting to his car, the scent of the facility clinging to him like a shroud. He tried to quit, but the money was too good, the supervisor too persuasive, and Alex, deep down, needed answers. The hum, the tank, the feeling. It wasn't just an old building. He took the next shift, armed with a better flashlight, a fully charged phone, and a newfound sense of dread. The second night was worse, much worse. The hum was still there, But now, it wasn't just coming from the sealed room, it was everywhere. A low, persistent thrumming that vibrated through the floorboards, up his legs, into his chest. It felt like the building itself was alive, breathing. As he patrolled Sector B, he started hearing new sounds, faint whispers. Not words, not quite, more like a dry, rasping murmur just at the edge of hearing, like sand being scraped across stone. He'd stop, hold his breath, strain his ears. Silence. Then when he moved again, the whispers would resume, seeming to follow him. He was in the main office area, long abandoned, when he saw it. On one of the dusty, overturned desks, a piece of paper. Not old, faded paper. This was crisp white, as if recently placed there. And on it, scrawled in a frantic, almost illegible hand, was a single word, "It's here." Alex felt the blood drain from his face. He grabbed the paper, crumpled it, and shoved it into his pocket. His heart hammered against his ribs. Someone else had been here, or something. He started systematically checking every room, every corner, a desperate hunt for a logical explanation. But the facility offered none, just more whispers, more cold spots, and an increasing sense of oppressive weight. The air grew heavy, thick with a smell he couldn't quite place, something acrid, chemical, and strangely sweet, like decaying fruit. He found himself drawn back to Sector C, to that specific room with the tank. He tried to fight it, but an unseen pull dragged his feet. When he got there, the door was wide open, no longer ajar, wide open. The hum inside was louder now, a deep, resonating drone that filled the corridor. He peeked inside. The tank, glowing more brightly now, pulsed with a dull, sickly green light, and floating in the murky liquid, something was moving. Something shapeless, grotesque, like a mass of tangled roots or veins, slowly writhing. Alex stumbled back, a choked gasp escaping his lips. He fumbled for his radio, his hands shaking so violently he almost dropped it. He needed to report this. He needed to get out. But as he raised it to his mouth, a sudden, piercing shriek tore through the silence. It wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It was a sound of pure agony, a high-pitched, metallic screech that tore at his eardrums and burrowed into his brain. He dropped the radio. The sound reverberated through the entire facility, bouncing off the concrete walls, making the air thrum with an unbearable pressure. Alex clamped his hands over his ears, dropping to his knees, his vision blurring. He could feel it now. The thing, it was awake. The green light from the tank intensified, bathing the corridor in an unnatural glow. Shadows danced like frantic demons. Alex forced his eyes open, and what he saw made him scream. From the tank, slowly, agonizingly, something began to emerge. It was a massive, pulsating mass. Not entirely solid, not entirely liquid. It extruded itself from the green depths, a shifting, undulating form, like a monstrous, eyeless slug made of raw flesh and pulsing veins. It stretched, it expanded, filling the doorway, its amorphous body seeming to absorb the light around it, leaving only a greater darkness in its wake. There was no discernible head, no limbs, just a vast, heaving entity, its surface slick and glistening, reflecting the sickly green. And then slowly, sickeningly, thin, tendril-like appendages began to snake out from its sides, reaching, feeling the air. They moved with an impossible speed, twitching, probing. Alex scrambled back, tripping over his own feet, crawling backward, away from the abomination. The creature, if you could even call it that, began to drag itself out of the room, its immense weight creating a horrifying, sucking sound against the floor. The whispers returned, louder, clearer now, but still not words. A cacophony of dry, rustling sounds, like 1,000 insects chittering inside his head. He could feel the cold radiating from it, an absolute zero that froze his very blood. He didn't think, he didn't plan. Pure animalistic terror took over. He spun around, scrambling to his feet, and ran. He ran blindly, down the endless corridors, the monstrous slithering sound echoing behind him, growing closer. He could hear the thud, thud, thud of his own heart, a drumbeat of panic in his ears. He risked a glance over his shoulder. The green glow was chasing him, growing stronger, consuming the shadows, eating the distance between them. The tendrils stretched out, impossibly long, scraping against the walls, leaving behind a viscous, glowing residue. He burst into the main lobby, the exit gates a distant promise of salvation. He fumbled for his keys, his hands numb, shaking uncontrollably. The heavy iron door felt like it weighed a ton. Behind him, the sound of the creature was deafening. He could feel its oppressive presence, the unbearable cold. He could almost smell that sweet, acrid stench, hot on his heels. He shoved the key into the lock, twisted, pulled. The heavy door groaned open just enough for him to squeeze through. He didn't even look back. He just ran. He ran until his lungs burned, until his legs screamed, until he collapsed in the parking lot, gasping for air, the taste of rust and chemicals still coating his tongue. He never went back. He never reported it. What could he say? There's a sentient, shapeless blob of pure terror in Sector C, sir. He knew no one would believe him. He quit that night, disappearing without a trace, leaving the K-ring and the heavy flashlight on the empty guard desk. The old facility still stands, silent and dark. No one goes near it. Locals say it's cursed. Some say it's just an abandoned building. But I wonder, what kind of experiments were they doing in there? What did they create? And what happens when a thing like that, something born of dark science and pure dread, finally gets out?